All right, these notes are over topic 13.2. We are looking at perfect square trinomials. Excuse me, sorry. So, the bookwork asks us to identify the domain and range of the function to the right. Remember that Dr. XY tells us domain is our x's and range is our y's. For the x's, we go from the left to the right. So the left goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and we go to the left, so that's a -4. At that spot of -4, there is a filled-in bubble or a value. And then to the right, we go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there is a value there as well. For the range, we go from the bottom to top because y's go up and down. So bottom to top. Note that even though there is an endpoint over here, that is not my highest peak, and the range goes from the lowest point to the highest point. So my range goes down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So -8. At -8, there is a value. And then it goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And at 8, there is no hole or empty spot. So that would go with a line under the inequality. So we are asked to factor all of these. In order to factor, I'm going to use a box. First thing I do is check for a GCF. Remember, if there's a 1 in front, there's not a number GCF. My last term does not have an X, so there's not a letter GCF. So I can go straight to the box. My first term and my last term get put in as my product. My sum is the one that does not go in the box, which is -4. So in y equals, I'm going to put -4 divided by x and look for two numbers that add to 4. Sorry, I have that backwards. I put 4 on the table, look for two numbers that add to -4. So -2 plus -2 would give me a -4. These come from the calculator. And then I factor on my GCF. So x squared and -2x share an x, -2x and 4 share -2. X squared and -2x share an x, -2x and 4 share -2. So my answer is x minus 2 times x minus 2. You could also see it written as x minus 2 squared because it's this written out 2 times. It's the exact same factor every time. Excuse me, problem 2. I don't have a GCF. I know that because my number has a 1, and you can't take anything out of 1 besides 1, and not all of them have numbers. So x squared and 1 go in my box. I multiply them for my product. My sum is 2x. So I put 1 divided by x and y equals in my calculator and look for two numbers I will add to 2. 1 plus 1 would give me 2. So I take out my GCS, x plus 1, x plus 1. So again, my factor is x plus 1, which can also be written as x plus 1 squared. Okay. Problem 3, I don't have a GCF because there's no number or letters that they all share, so I go straight to my box. X squared plus 16. My product is 16x squared. My sum is what I don't write in my box. I put the product into y equals and I search for the sum. So two numbers that add to 8. 4 and 4 would get me there. So these share an x and a 4, an x and a 4. So my answer is x plus 4 squared because it's written 2 times. 14, no GCF. So x squared and 49. My product is 49x squared. My sum, I'm looking for negative 14x. So because this one's positive, but my sum is negative, I'm going to look up in the negatives. I'm looking for two numbers that add to negative 14, negative 7, and negative 7 would do it. So x minus 7, x minus 7. So x minus 7 squared is my answer. Problem 5, no GCF. X squared and 64. My product is 64x squared. My sum is 16x. So I put 64 divided by x into y equals. I'm looking for two numbers that add to 16. Oop. 8 plus 8. Remember, we're only looking at whole numbers, which is why I'm skipping over some of these kind of quickly. So 8 and 8. We could take out an x and an 8, an x and an 8. So x plus 8 squared. For the last one, no GCF. X squared, 81. So my product is 81x squared. My sum is negative 18x. So I put 81 into y equals. Look in the table. And I'm looking for two numbers that add to a negative 18. So I'm going to go in the negatives. Negative 9 and negative 9 would give me that negative 18. So x minus 9, x minus 9. So that would be the same thing as x minus 9 squared. So do you notice a pattern? All of these had x plus or minus a number squared as our final answer. So let's see if we can come up with a pattern. Here we started with 4, ended up with 2. Here we started with 1, got 1. 16 to 4, 49 to 7, 64 to 8, and 81 to 9. So what it's looking like is we can take the square root of our numbered term and then let's look at our signs. In the middle, we started with a negative and had a negative. On 2, we started with a positive in the middle, ended with a positive. Negative to negative, positive to positive, positive to positive, negative to negative. So we can take the square root of the term and make our factor the same sign as our x term. So for example, problem 5, if I'm looking at that, I could take the square root of 64 and get 8, and I would make it a positive 8 because the 16 was positive. No, the way that you know if you can do this or not is if you take the square root of 64, whatever that number is, multiply it by 2, that should be your middle term. So like the square root of 81 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18. Square root of 49 is 7, 7 times 2 is 14. Square root of 16 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. So you can't always do this, but if you can take the square root and multiply by 2 and that's your middle term, then you can do this. So on your assignment, 13.2, we're asking you to try this rule on the ones that it works on. If you don't feel comfortable with it or you don't understand the rule, then use the box because you still can use the box on every single factoring problem.